Well, traders, investors, I'm L.A. Little. This is your daily Neoclassical TA wrap. We take a look at these markets. We're doing it differently. We're doing it from a neoclassical perspective. That means we're looking at supply and demand on the charts. We're using that information, areas of significance, tests, the neoclassical model to make decisions about what to do and increase our probabilities of success. So if you're interested in that, you should probably check us out. Let's look at the market here today. We had a pretty decent day up. Oil had a nice big spike today that got the oil stocks moving. Inventory numbers were out today. I didn't see what they were, but evidently they were not bearish. Gold, silver also popped. You're pretty much a green everywhere. You got a little weakness this evening in the Nikkei, but outside of that, pretty much green across the board as that continuation bounce does just that, continues. So starting here with the indexes, as far as what happened today, nothing on the S&P. Matter of fact, the S&P was the weakest of the group. The S&P couldn't move. It was an inside bar on the S&P, which really doesn't tell us much. Still trying to get to that area we talked about last night. If we move to the NASDAQ, now here's where the action was today, as the NASDAQ is moving up towards those breakdown bar highs. And those highs, of course, are the ones that you see right up here. And so that price point up there, which is the very top of this area, price point is actually 59.28. We're sitting at 58.97. It's really just a bar away if this continues higher. That will print as a swing point high tonight. So notice, the setup now as we're building out this range, or potentially going to try to break out of it, right, after being consolidating here. What is this? We've been consolidating that long, which is roughly, 6-7 weeks. So that top of that, the bottom of it down here, if you take and make your box that way, you can start to see what's taking place or about to take place. Either you're going to get a break to the downside or the upside, and one of those directions is going to have some more momentum. If you don't know which way to lean, just lean with the trend. Trend is up. And so, independent of everything else, that's where you want to lean. As far as what it's going to do, the test is there. And it potentially could be a test failure given the way that bar is set up in terms of the amount of selling that took place on that bar. If we broaden this out, put it on a weekly, on the weekly, you just see that consolidation. There's 6 weeks of consolidation, roughly 7 weeks of consolidation now after an extended move. If you just go back, even just a recent history and look at the magnitude of the moves, we went from 42 to the top here was it's roughly 800 points. Then you pull back about 400, and then you go again to the top, and we'll call the top this one, right? So that's about 40, what do we got, about 45, 50 or so up to 50, 53.50. So about 900 on that one. And then you do it again, right? Now you go from 5,000 roughly up to 59. So even bigger. In each of these, right, you did about a third of the way back on both cases. If you did a third of the way back from this one, you would probably be into this price point area here. And so you can see if you take that box and you double it down, you're about down to there. So if this does expand and actually do the correction, you can expect a correction back down into this area at least. So that's just rough ballpark figures there. NDX, this is the one to watch, folks. This is the one that's been the strongest. This is the one that's making the fastest move back up. That's going to be a swing point high tomorrow. You're just a few points away. I suspect it will test tomorrow. The Russell has actually got a decent move going. This one had that big hammer reversal, now 2 days follow through. If you take the bar that it broke down from, which is this wide price spread, high volume anchor bar, right, about a third of the way to the top would be somewhere in there. I would think that's where it's going to try to reach, right? So you had a third, and a third, and usually those are good ballpark numbers. You can just kind of visually see them. You don't need a bunch of fancy indicators. You can kind of see them there. The top of this is those swing post highs that were broke, and it's also the low of the high. That's where the breakdown bar came from. So many times you'll see exactly this kind of scenario set up. I mean, this is not at all uncommon. So in other words, when you came down and you didn't find support here where you should have, right, based off of this bar, and you broke through it, what does it do? It bounces right back to where you should have found support. And what happens? That becomes resistance. That's the way markets work. And you go down to the next level where there should be support, and either you find it or you don't. When we talk about significance and we talk about test, that's what the test is. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a test. You test it, you can't get over it, boom, you break it down. Let's go to the, actually, you know, I want to, the next thing, I'll pop into the sectors next, and I want to spend a little time on the XLY, and I want to look at some of the stocks inside of it, because one of the things I promised you is that we would do that sort of thing here in our spare time on each show. So if I look at this sector, and let me pop to, I'll just flip through them. So on the IBB, really nothing happening. You got weak bounces taking place on all of these. The IYT inside day. The SOX is still trying to make its way back up there, but it looks a little bit weaker than the NDX. NDX been driven by primarily the big cap stocks, not the biotech or the chips. Here's basic materials. I told subscribers this weekend this would be the place to look for a potential move. I don't remember if I broadcasted here or not, but I thought that this was a good, actually I think I did broadcast it here, that basic materials on that reversal look like a tradable area to play. Energy, I talked about the energy being a place that we had some strength today. That was strong yesterday on big volume as it came off that break. Now here's an interesting thing. So you're always looking for a tell. If you look at energy, right, you're over the swing point low. You broke down below it. You stayed underneath it for 2 bars. Now you're back over it. When you do that, it's going to try to reach for the next level. That's back up here. So this is where it's going to come to, and that's where it's going to find its sellers most likely. Right at the swing point high, right at the bottom of that swing point low, which is the bearish retest region that's higher up. The fact that it got over this other one though, right? The fact that you've gotten over this, it doesn't mean it's like, you know, turned a corner and everything's up now, but it's saying, hey, you know, the down may have been arrested finally, and instead of this way, it's more like this. That is what a bearish retest region that fails means. And so this sector is not a bad place to be looking at things, and maybe tomorrow we'll come over and spend a little time on it. Here's the pullback. If you look at the pullback, it did pretty much what you would think. It didn't quite finish it, but it did that retest regen again off the bullish high, right? So it's a bullish retest regenerate. This was the break of that high way back there, and I guess I take that back. It looks like that one was another one. This was the breakout here. So this is the first time back after more than 6 bars. This one was applying to something that's off your chart. Comes all the way back, right? And as it gets back into the lower third, which is usually not where it should go, it should only go to the top third. Probabilities would have suggested it would be arrested here, so that tells us a little bit weaker than you think. So you're going to get your first bounce out of here. Then you got to measure up someplace and say, where can it bounce to? And it looks like it's right about there, if I can get it drawn in for you. I suspect that's about as far as it's going to get on the first bounce, if it gets that far. And then if we look a little bit farther right, that would set it back, come back into this area, and that's where you'll figure out whether this trend, which still is bullish, this trend still remains in effect, and therefore it's tradable on a short-term time frame on that retrace that you would expect back down here at some point. So long story short, this is starting to turn and maybe is actually putting in its bottom finally. I want to flip down to discretionary. The discretionary was really strong again today. A lot of this had to do with a couple stocks. So today it does get over the top and does break out, it looks like. And so, or actually got over this swing point high, it looks like. That was 87.58. Yeah, it got over it. It's got another one just above it here at 87.75. It's going to try to attack it tomorrow. It did tonight. It failed to get over it, but it got over one of the two. What I wanted to do is I wanted to pull over the, this is what I'm using to drive these charts that I'm showing you here. I just want to come into the watch list for the particular sectors. And if I pull this up a little bit, I want to pop into, one of the mentors has created this nice little watch list here for the XLY that has the highest weighted stocks inside of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull into these highest weighted ones, and we're going to take a look at them. So let's click into show all charts, and then let's pull this off the screen and let's see what we got. So here's Amazon. So Amazon breaks out, volume picks up a little bit, breakout on this time frame. It's already broken out back here, so this is just a continuation. You actually have an ABCD structure up, it looks like, on Amazon from here to, well, actually I can't tell. That's low is 803, the bar prior was 805, and the top was 42. Yeah, so that's it there. So let's go back in and let's put that chart in, or that ABCD in. So we got an ABCD structure to here and up. So it's got a little farther to go. So Amazon, and Amazon's big weighting. So Amazon's doing some driving here. Comcast is another one. Let's see what Comcast looks like. And that's just a big range trade. It has volume at the top though, so you'll expect it to, when you see this sort of thing, folks, what it means to me, the very first thing I think when I see a wide price spread, high volume bar, that's a huge anchor bar. Usually it's going to contain price for a long period of time, and that's what this is doing. You get up towards the top, they sell it. You get towards the bottom, they buy it, right? That's what's happening. At some point, what you'd expect is that this thing would do a continuation of what it was already doing, which is to move higher. If we move on down the list here, so CMCSA is a range trade if you want to trade it. Disney breaks out continuation. Looks like it has all kinds of ABCD structures on the way up. And the latest one looks like it's just about done. Home Depot is the next one. And that one had a test failure. Notice how this test failure brought it down. And so you're going to range trade for now because you went over and couldn't get follow through. Big volume, less volume attacking it, fails, right? Pops back down. This is a nice support underneath it, so you got a nice little range starting to build out on this one as well. And you're going to see this more and more as we go forward, is a lot of these are just going to range. Lowe's is the next one, range trade. Big spike up, earnings probably just sitting there range trading. Let's see what it looks like on a weekly. It's doing a test of the top, has volume. Yep, has volume on it too. 21 there, 24 here. This thing's going to try and break out at some point. And if you're into the classical stuff, right, this is kind of a cup and handle starting to form on this one, which would be a huge move up if it ever did it. McDonald's is the next one, and you can see why this sector is so strong. McDonald's range trading at the top, and it's at this, look at that. When I was talking about the breakdown bars on the indexes, notice this breakdown bar. What does it do? Comes right into it, test, 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 test. It really wants to get over it, but it can't. That's what happens on breakdown bars, because what happens is anybody that bought this thing, they're kind of like underwater, and they've been waiting a long time to get out. And it's the same thing here on this bar. And so all these people up here, you're finding sellers from these positions over here making a little money or just getting out of the way with a small loss. Nike had earnings, they got knocked down. Let's see what their chart looks like. Yeah, and here they go, come right back up, but that's not a strong one. So if you're looking in the sector so far, Amazon's the strongest. Comcast, Disney, Home Depot, Lowe's, all of those, even McDonald's, they're all ranges right at the top. Here's another one that's really strong, Priceline. Price line, yeah, very strong, and you can see on a monthly on this guy, very strong, steady move to the top side, and actually that ABCD looks done as well. So you're getting a lot of ABCDs done, and you got range trades developing, which is typically what happens. Same thing on Starbucks, kind of a range, not nearly as strong as the others. And finally, Time Warner's the last big weighting, and that one also ranging at the top. So what's the moral of the story? Well, if you want to buy one of these, I would be looking at Amazon price line. If you want to trade ranges, which is probably not a bad idea at this point, you got a bunch to choose from. Sector-wise, very strong sector. That's it for tonight. Have yourself a great one. I expect these markets are probably going to try to push higher in the morning. If that index fells, then you'll get your retrace finally. And matter of fact, the bigger part of that would be a failed bounce if you actually go farther down instead of just a little retrace. Failed bounce usually takes a couple times on the first one. Let me go back to that chart real quick. And I'll use the NDX chart because that's the strongest one. So it's usually the way this works is, you've had your big move, right? You're range trading for a while now. This is your breakdown bar. You come back to test it, right? And they usually find a way to get back up there eventually. The failed bounce is where you come down a little bit and then you try again usually, right? And that one, if it can't get over it, that's the one that starts to send you down. And so that's what you're really looking for. Have yourself a great night, folks. If you're interested in what I do, if you like the way I do it, and you want to learn how to do it yourself, here's my information. Give me a call or shoot me an email. Take care. Good night.